you're going to put the seller or the leasor's name in there and the property address. So if you're listing a property, you would put the legal, if it's an LLC or if it's an estate, you're going to put the proper legal name of the people on that top line and the correct property address. Now, this has changed a little bit. Dylan, can you scoot it up a little so I can get to part A here?
Carole,
Yeah.
have you pulled up the red line so people can see it?
Dylan doesn't have
He
that.
does. He printed
Okay.
it for me. Can you pull up? Yep.
Okay.
So you go. Yep. Well, keep going. We just went through that.
Yeah.
That's so the way they did it was the red line and then the new one. So
Oh,
keep
gotcha,
going.
gotcha.
So this
Okay.
is the red line.
So here's buyer.
Correct.
Okay, so the buyer one is the same on this top part as the other one. Part A. Do you want to explain
Do you
this part?
hear?
'Cause I don't hear. Go
All right.
ahead, because
So-
I haven't looked at this since Friday.
This is the red line. So y'all are used to seeing this buyer form. This is the buyer agency form. And the way that you have in your hand the new version, but y'all are familiar with the old version, so just thinking it might be helpful to kind of see what they've added. So the stuff that is underlined is new. This gives an instruction about when you're supposed to do it. The change that they explained to us on this is that when you are doing this agency consent, you really need, and you're working with a buyer, if you're getting that buyer form signed, you need to go ahead and come in and choose something so keep scrolling real quick. They've added, all right, if you look at the original, so go to well, y'all have the original. Hold on, let me look at it. They've added a box here. This is what we're used to seeing, right? Y'all are used to seeing this. So this at the top, scroll back up a little bit. This up here is new. So they've added a section here to be completed prior to entering into a written agreement to provide real estate brokerage services. So the intention here is that you're getting this signed at the same time you're either doing a buyer agency form, an exclusive buyer agency agreement form, or your consumer guide, okay? And you're coming in here and you're gonna say, this is who the buyer is, this is who the principal broker is, this is who I am, who I work for. At this time that I'm retained as the following type of agent. And so you will be a buyer's agent, because you're not gonna know. And to me, this is kind of silly, but that's what they want us to do. And then they're gonna come down here and sign. What's probably gonna be your best practice, honestly, is to then split this document. Okay, so you've got this, and then when you go in and you're offering on a property, scroll up. This is what you're gonna have filled out at the time you're offering on the property. Now we know what it is. Now we can actually disclose what we're really doing, and then that's the way I'm gonna handle it, is I'm gonna go in dot loop and split it. Otherwise, I'll erase their signatures on the first page, right? So, and when we were asking these questions at the broker conference, the attorney was like, somebody asked a question about erasing dot loop signatures and yada yada. And he was like, oh gosh, well, you're asking the dinosaur a question about, he didn't know. So for us that use dot loop, I think probably the easiest thing to do is, it's gonna be an extra step, download it, put it back in there, split it. That way you've got your first page of signatures, and then when you come to do what you normally would do, that would be the second page. So here's where you're gonna do, and they've added lessee in here. That wasn't really appropriately put in there, especially on the seller form. It didn't say lessor, and so somebody that was signing a seller's agency form is like, when I'm not selling, so they've made some changes like that. But so you're gonna fill this out, and then that's where you'll disclose what it is that you're doing, which is pretty much, they've taken out, the only difference really is they have a whole different section at the bottom that talks about whether or not you have a personal relationship with them. So they took that out of every single section, and just if you scroll down a little bit more, Dylan, it is here. So you'll fill that out separately, but it's the same thing you would have put, it's just in a different spot. Okay.
Great question, Carole.
Yeah.
Does originally Lifestyle just a dual agency? There was no designated. Are we doing designated
We
now?
are.
Okay.
We used to say we were just dual, but we changed it to where now we are
There is
designated. Yes.
And when are these forms required? Like I've got something under contract, do I need to go back and change?
No,
would
I
take
think
this
start
moving
moving
forward.
forward. We're not gonna go back and be redoing all that. That would be
Perfect.
So as of today, use these forms. Okay, I think that's it. I'm gonna get back out of your way.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that on the board Friday, but hadn't seen it since.
Yes.
So I was cramming all the stuff last night. Okay, so go now to the seller one, which is where you were. That's the buyer.
There you go.
Okay, there's the seller.
You want to stay on this red line?
Yeah, let's go ahead and we can stay on this and you correct me if I miss something. Okay. So once again, you're gonna fill in the top like we went over. This part's new. You're going to fill in the principal broker's name. And it says name of affiliate agent, that would be you. And then you put Lifestyle here. Down here, just like on the buyer's form, at the time, licensee is retained as the following type of agent. So if you're representing the seller, you don't know if you're doing designated, so you're gonna be checking the seller. If you're just putting the deal together or writing the contract for the seller, you might do licensee shall provide transactional brokerage services to the seller or buyers for the purposes of this form. Down here, we consent to the above relationships as we enter into this real estate contract. If there's a dual agency or designated agency in this transaction, we acknowledge reading the information contained, and this is the Commissioner's Guide to Agency Relationships, which is the total, the first form. Okay, so then you have everybody sign down here. Okay, go on to the next page.
I switched it.
Oh, okay, all right. So this is what you're used to. So if it's two agents and two different brokerages, you put your name and the office, and it says principal broker's name. So that's where Eli now, Jenny, and the paperwork's done, and it comes back. Two agencies and two different brokerages, this is the same as what you've had here. What they've crossed out is under dual agency, and that really won't apply to us. Transaction involving other real estate agent, says to the best of the agent's knowledge, neither the agent nor the brokerage acting as a dual agent in this transaction has a personal, family, or business relationship with either the buyer or seller if such a relationship exists. Why did they say they took that out?
They added to a different section.
Okay,
Right there, by
okay.
itself. Yep.
Okay, all right. And then you sign your name down here. The rest of this is the same. Okay, any questions on that? When you read through it without all the cross-outs, I think you'll figure it out
Most of it
better.
is just a cleanup.
It's
Really, I mean, especially the consumer guide, the only real differences are those first two pages on the buyers and seller consent form. The rest of it is really just cleaning up. And some of it, I mean, it was mostly stuff that needed to be cleaned up.
So on that first page, when we're listing the property, if we're just selling agent, and then we sell it ourselves, do we need to go back and change that?
So,
You're kind of doing it twice.
if you're doing dual agency,
Well, let's say you list it, you're just a seller's agent. Let's say then you end up being a dual
Okay,
agent.
well,
I would say
You've got-
no. And the
two
reason
forms
is, it
there.
says, at this time, licensee
Yeah.
is retained as the following type of agent.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because
my
this
opinion
is,
on that would be.
this is your.
And then you just do this when you get
This
it
is
all.
your preliminary,
That's right.
and then you go to the next page, which would be part B, and that's what you're used to.
That's when we're
you
gonna
get-
really know what the whole situation is, because then we know who's buying it.
Right.
That makes sense.
So like you said, split the document
That's what I'm gonna
and
do.
have one signed, just send one page,
Yeah.
page 1 of 3, and then,
You know
Down
what we
the road,
could do,
two,
really, I
three.
mean, I have a templates file in my dot loop, so maybe I'll just make it into 2 documents, and then I never even send them that whole shebang, I just send them the first page, and then when we go to the real deal, I'll send them the second and third.
yeah,
Well,
but then you're
and-
gonna have to explain.
Why am I sending you 2? I've already signed this, you know.
Well, and what maybe when we, because we're gonna rebuild our lifestyle buyer and seller folders now that all this stuff's out. So would it be more helpful to go ahead and split it up?
I think so, because I mean,
Because we can enter it, we can do that when we refill the folders, if that's what's easier.
what I think is gonna be kind of sucky, honestly, is that they're gonna get something that just says Part B. Now, are they gonna remember what was Part A? No. So I can see there being some questions about that. I wish that they would have put this as one thing, this as one thing.
Right.
and then-
Well, and we can label it, and maybe it's just gonna have to be in part of your conversation with your clients.
That, look, I'm gonna send you the first part of this now. When we get an offer, you're gonna have the second part. I'll remind you about that.
Yes.
Something like that. But I do think that that's probably gonna be kind of, well, where was Part A? Or, well, you signed that 6 weeks ago.
Right, like that should be at the top of that.
Right, but it's not. So, and again, when the lawyer was explaining that to us, he said, listen, you're talking to people that think about this in terms of paper and not in terms of dollars.
Well, and I think part of it is, like, Louisville doesn't use dot loop.
Right.
And we were the only ones that were using dot loop, so we were kind of like the small fish. And they weren't just concerned about us losing initials. Yeah.
It is what it is. That's what I'm gonna do. You know, just to make it easy.
Makes sense. Yes. Okay, they also go down to the next form. Okay, that's,
We already
so
did this.
we've already done that, that was, okay, seller's disclosure. Okay, is this the one with the cross outs? They just,
Yes.
what you'll notice, you know, you're not supposed to touch it. The seller is the one that fills it out. Usually when a seller asks me when they're filling that out, and they'll say, do I need to disclose blah, blah, blah? And my pat answer is, after the buyer moves in, do you think the neighbors are gonna tell them about that? And you know, it does, well, our basement leaks, but it always, you know, it goes toward the drain and it dries up. Do you think the neighbors are gonna say something after they move in? I guess I better fill it out. Yeah. So, but go on down, all right. It's just to the best of your knowledge, they've taken out, has the house been used as rental? Yes or no?
So is it now like black and white?
Yeah, it should be easier for them to fill.
They've taken out to the best of your knowledge throughout.
Yeah, so,
Sounds like they make it more definite.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and then, I mean, really, this is just a cleanup, right? So answer all questions to the best of your knowledge. So we don't need to say
Oh,
that
it's
every
at
time.
the top, okay.
Yeah,
I see.
Right, and so then they took out,
go on to the
yeah, go
next.
to the next.
Okay, to the best of your knowledge, when was the last time the basement, it says, has the basement ever leaked? So yes or no?
Just rewriting.
So when was the last time the basement leaked? Okay, so right here it says, if so, when did the basement last leak? So it's just a cleanup. Okay, so go to the next, let's see, down here. How old is the roof covering? It says age of the roof if known. To the best to the best of your knowledge is out. So go on.
So in there.
This looks pretty,
Is this added? Also,
Well,
since
it's
it's
not
underlined?
crossed out, so.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so that's been added, and/or corrections or repairs to resolve these problems. And they added that up here too. So this gives the seller space to write in what they've done. Okay, go on down. Okay, next page. They've crossed out, if yes, what, this has to do with the HOA. What is the, and they crossed out yearly and put annual or monthly assessment. HOA primary contact phone info and email address. It's really important that you get the seller to fill out the HOA information, and that they had people at this broker summit on Friday that worked with title companies, were closing attorneys, and they were just emphasizing how important it is that the agent get the seller to fill this out correctly so they have the information. Are you aware of any condition or legal action that may result in an increase in dues? Yeah, on the email address back up here, they were talking about too on HOAs, how a lot of times it'll be a property management company, but a lot of times it's somebody in the neighborhood who's handling the HOA. So it's real important to try to get a phone number and the email. All right, go on down. I don't see any other changes there. Go on. I noticed it says 6 pages now.
Yeah, so it's not, when they take the track changes out, it speeds it back up.
Okay. Are there any transferable warranties to be, okay, they've taken out to be passed on. And it's, I think, the same here. Okay.
The only thing that I wanted to point out on this one is if you go back up to the roof section, so just like before. I mean, this is just a cleanup job. They didn't really add anything important, but I did like this change go up a little bit more. So see how they struck the boxes here? So now where we're just asking for the roof age, we don't then have to have yes, no, all that. So those kinds of things are, this is really, again, just a cleanup job. But I was glad to see that because I've had that actually come up with, so what am I supposed to do here? They took this out. So again, I mean, all the big changes are in the agency consent forms. That's really it.
Any questions over that? Okay. All right. Go to the lead-based paint form.
Okay,
It's not in this packet, it stands alone.
It's not in here.
It's not a KRC.
Okay. It's not a KREC, but did you, no, it's not in the new ones. This one, I'm just gonna show you what Amy sent
Pull it out,
back.
Lou. You pull it out.
I'll have to sign it real quick.
Or you can like just get it from that forms directory on.
Oh, nice.
Yep, right there.
Yeah,
Seller's lead base paint.
Am I missing it?
Oh,
Oh, there.
right, yeah.
here it is. Okay, this one, nope, that's not it.
It's the acknowledgement
Right
form?
one. It's the addendum.
It's, yeah.
It's just under lead
Lead
based
base,
paint,
probably.
Oh,
There you go. Lead base paint.
No,
That-
no, here it is, that's
Okay.
it.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, on this form, and this is consistently done wrong. On this form, where it says today's date, that's the date you start the form when you list the property. So if you're doing all the paperwork for May 3rd, you're gonna put today's date, May 3rd, right there. The contract date is not filled in until you've got the contract, or I would say what's realistic is the day you've written the offer, okay? And the contract number, you need to put a contract number because that ties all of your paperwork together. And then you put the property address as the listing agent. So the buyer's agent is gonna fill in the contract date and the contract number. But the listing agent fills in today's date and the property address. Then down here, this is, okay, where it says seller's disclosure here. Presence of lead-based paint and/or lead-based paint hazards. You know, if it was built before 78, you know you need the form. The seller, 99.9% of the time, has no knowledge of lead-based paint or paint hazards in the house. They may, or you know it's been painted over through the years, but you're going to have the seller initial here, and most of the time they're going to check they have no knowledge. Records and reports available to the seller. I've never had anybody check number 1 here, where they've provided the purchaser with any available records. It's always been seller has no reports or records pertaining to lead-based paint hazards in the house. They're going to initial here and check here. Now, the purchasers, so the buyers, what it says, and everybody just checks all 3 of these. Okay, well, let me skip this for right now. The listing agent, where it says agent's acknowledgement, the listing agent is the one who initials here when they're listing the property that they've informed the seller of the seller's obligations and they're aware of their responsibility to ensure compliance. So the listing agent initials here, and then the seller's sign and date down here, and the listing agent signs underneath them. Now, the buyer's agent, you know where they now put the contract number and they put the contract date up at the top. And here it says purchaser has received copies of all information listed above. Did they get any copies of anything? So really they don't initial there, but everybody just goes initial, initial, initial. So I'm not going to correct you if you do that, but every time I teach this, I think, it's weird, nobody ever does it. But if you actually read it, and then it says, purchaser has received the pamphlet, Protect Your Family from Lead in Your Home. I doubt that every purchaser's received it, but you want to make sure you send that through .loop to them, and they should be initialing here. And purchaser has, and it says requested the opportunity to conduct the inspection. I've had one buyer couple, and this has been probably over 30 years ago, that did a lead-based paint test. And it was expensive, and I could have told them I knew the age of the house was old, and I could have told them it was going to have lead-based paint someplace in that house. But generally, they're going to waive the opportunity to do that. So technically, you need 2 initials here on D and E, but everybody does C, D, and E to cover yourself, so there you go. And then the buyer sign here, the agent signs here. So you learn something. Okay, now let's go on and let's cover the other forms that are new, and then we'll come to the contract.
You want to start on
Let's go to the new forms, the ones they've revised.
It's recording.
And the first one,
Sorry.
okay, it's the inspection repair addendum.
It's one of these, I promise.
Okay. Wait, you just passed it.
Inspection repair addendum?
Yeah, that's it.
That looks
Okay.
different than mine. I guess that, mine has lines, that just doesn't have lines, right?
Oh, I downloaded this from Dotloop, so it just
Oh,
took
gotcha.
it from the blank, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Dylan.
I hope this is the same one, because I've got the
Yeah.
one we've got. Okay. Let me read it and we'll see if it completely matches. Okay, this form was drafted and is copyrighted by the Bluegrass Realtors for the exclusive use of its members. Members are not required to use this form other than blanks to be completed. I would say always use this form if you're using the new contract. This form was drafted with the interests of multiple parties in mind, and it may need to be modified. According to the memo we got yesterday, they're not going to be making any more changes to the contract or these forms until, what, the end of the year? Who knows? Let's see. Anyway, come down to contract number, so you're going to put the contract number here. The same as on all the other paperwork, to tie it together, put the property address on there. Then it says, the inspection repair addendum is entered into by the buyer and seller pursuant to Section 6 of the Bluegrass Realtors Real Estate Purchase and Sale Contract regarding contract number and property address listed above the contract. It's effective as of the last date of the last signature below and is made a part of the contract. The parties agree as follows. So you already know that you have a contract once you have the last initials or signature dated and timed on the contract. That's your, I think they call it now, effective date. The buyer has made the inspections and due diligence pursuant to Section 6 of the contract. The buyer has requested seller to make, and seller agrees to make the following repairs. Okay, so you're going to do the same as you've done before, write in those repairs that they want. Then number 2, all repairs shall be completed by seller not later than 48 hours before closing, and seller shall provide reasonable evidence to buyer of the completion of all repairs. 3, buyers shall be entitled to reinspect the property pursuant to Section 8A1 of the contract, and I believe that's 48 hours before closing. Then a new choice is price concession. We know that in the old contract,